3 years ago today, Ben Stokes played one of the most remarkable innings in Test history as he almost single-handedly won the Headingley Ashes Test to keep the series alive. It was even more remarkable coming just a few weeks after his man-of-the-match performance in the World Cup final. These performances alone will be enough to secure the fame of most players, but for Stokes, his career has seen many more incredible highs and plenty of challenging lows. From that final over in the T20 World Cup final, where Carlos Brathwaite struck him for 4 sixes, to events in Bristol, which saw him on trial for a fray, to last summer taking a break from the game to protect his mental health. You could say his life has already been the stuff of a movie script, and that's exactly what's happened. Tomorrow, Ben Stokes, Phoenix from the Ashes, is released on Amazon Prime, featuring conversations with Hollywood director Sir Sam Mendes. Well, Aggers has been speaking to Ben Stokes about the film, and we'll hear that in a moment. We'll also hear from Joe Root and Carlos Brathwaite. But first, here's a reminder of the Ben Stokes roller coaster, starting with events on this day in 2019.
And in comes Pat Cummins from the far end. He bowls to Stokes, who hammers it for 4! And stands there with the bat raised. I can't believe we've seen that.
That is the most extraordinary innings ever been played by an Englishman.
He punches the air, his helmet's off. He was hit on that helmet this morning. Bits flew off all over the place. It's absolutely amazing. I don't think he can believe it. He's standing there, he's just taking it in. He's got his hands on his head and he's just looking around the ground.
To do that after as well, the World Cup, how he played that, to even, that innings happens once a lifetime. He's done 2 in 6 weeks.
He is an incredible cricketer.
He's a leader by what he does.
Wow, 250 up.
The things that's happened to him.
Had a fight with him growing up.
Incredible highs. Some really tough moments.
The last couple of weeks have been complicated for you. Was there a particular moment that you thought, I need to take a step back?
Quite a lot of things have happened with me, with how the world is at the moment, and just sort of got to a point where probably everything just got a bit too much.
What was the lowest ebb, and how did it manifest itself?
Sort of think how long it's been happening for, but when you sat on your toilet in your hotel room and you're having a massive panic attack with your manager on the end of the phone with his wife, and then eventually your wife trying to, talk you through it and get you sort of coming out of that. Just, I think that's probably when you know when, things aren't, quite right.
Ben rang me one morning, just after 6 a.m. The other end of the phone was just a very, very, very emotional Ben. He was in tears, he couldn't get his words out, he was struggling for breath. And it was clear that he was, to me, having a panic attack of some description. And he was in a poor way.
When I sat down with Sam and we had that interview in London, that was 2 weeks after I decided to take a break, but I wanted that to be covered in it. I think if it wasn't, and then we came out and decided not to put in there, there'd be a lot of people going, why is this not in it? Like, it was such a huge part of his life at that time. Why is it not in there? So, that was, another reason as to almost my commitment to this and wanting it to be, seen, is that I said, right, we need to get this kind of stuff in.
The inclusion of as much of the Bristol stories was in it. Did you feel that had to be dealt with? You've got to get it all out there.
Yeah, through that whole process, I wasn't able to say anything. There was just had to be complete and utter silence. And that was an opportunity for me to put not just the events, and make it, oh, poor old me. It was everything with it. There was like the whole controversy around the trial and everything like that. But then there was also the effect that it can have on people and their family life.
Claire was squeezing my hand as the jury came back in.
Just over an hour ago, the cricketer Ben Stokes was found not guilty of affray. He's now coming out of the court to make a statement on the steps.
The decision came after less than 3 hours.
The cricketer was acquitted of affray.
Not guilty, cleared of the charge.
As soon as I heard it, I just started to sob, like just with relief.
The jury believed Stokes' version of events and unanimously found him not guilty.
It was just such a big moment. That's when the emotion sets in, and I guess you realise then what Ben and Claire had been going through.
Today's verdict represents the end of an 11-month ordeal for Ben, during which time he's had to maintain his silence at times when many on social media and in certain parts of the press predetermined his guilt long before the trial began.
What was sad is I naively thought, well, that's happened. He's been found not guilty. That's that. And of course it wasn't. Of course people still wrote horrible things.
It was a very, very tough time, as I allude to, and one of the probably the most powerful things about that I watched, that I noticed from the film, is when Stuart Broad was on camera and he said the same thing. He actually said that he could see me not playing again, and I'd never spoke to Stuart about that through my time away. I spoke to Stuart a lot through that period, but I'd never said the words to him like, I'm not sure if I'll ever play again. But the fact that he got that feeling through that time was like almost an eye-opener to me at that time, of like things were quite bad.
There's a difference between good and great.
As a cricketer, not just myself, but we all know as England players that we've got more responsibility than just going out and performing on the field. Young kids these days, they will look at us and they will want to play like us. They will want to do what we do because that's who they look up to. They will also act in the way that we act in the field. If I was to shy away and not speak about anything that I've gone through, I don't think I would be given the responsibility that's been set on me at the moment to do that.
Well, Ben Stokes has been speaking about a range of subjects in this film, and Jonathan, will hear your interview with him in just a moment. But first, you've seen the film. We heard some clips there. Talk us through some of the key themes and how the film is constructed.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I think the main theme is that a sporting hero who is apparently indestructible and capable of, in that 2019, winning that World Cup, playing that incredible innings, the like of which we'll never see again at Headingley, but is fallible. And I think that's mainly what this film is about. I mean, it's not the sort of film that you walk away from and think, oh, that was fun, funny, I enjoyed that. It's a really interesting film because it does look at the rise and almost fall of Ben Stokes, and it goes right back to some lovely footage of him as a kid. Actually, when he first went to Cockermouth, remember his parents were New Zealanders, father a rugby league coach, posted up to Cockermouth, got a job up there up in the north, and so young Ben, a New Zealander, was sort of placed there really about the age of 10 or so. And there's a really nice film of him actually progressing through the age groups of playing cricket for a start. And you can see, and everyone think, wow, this fellow's incredible. Joe Root played against him as a very young boy and remembers his fellow Ben Stokes. You see how close he was to his dad, and actually how similar they are as characters. And yet the helplessness of not being able to be there when his dad was ill. If you remember, obviously, 2019, they couldn't be in England to savour those moments themselves, but there's going to be a family get-together in Johannesburg at the start of that winter tour in South Africa, and within days of their arrival, Jed Stokes was terminally ill, effectively collapsed, and was taken to the hospital and never really recovered. They got him home and so on, but he had brain cancer. And so I think Ben has always felt not guilty for being apart, but he was so close to his father. He really struggled with the separation while his dad was suffering. And he did get back. He wasn't there when he died. But the impact that Jed left on Ben was immense. And you really sense that. And you can see whenever he gets 100, he raises that sort of strange fingerless hand up to the skies, because Jed had a bad dislocated finger that was operated on and part missing. So that's the sign that Ben gives. And he obviously had a massive influence on him. The effect of the bubbles, wearing people down, sitting in hotel rooms for weeks on the circuit, all of this combining, of course, to his mental health issues. And what really will strike anyone who watches it is what Stokes looks like when he's giving that interview to Sam Mendes, which was only a year ago, and he looks an absolute shell of what we see today.
So that was after he announced the decision to withdraw from international cricket.
Absolutely. That was. I mean, he's decided, despite that, to do this film, or because of that, maybe to do this film. You know, he wanted to get that message out there. But if you see it and you see him, yeah, it's Ben, but it's a shriveled Ben with just sort of blank eyes, hollow face. It's remarkable, really.
Now, the Bristol incident obviously is discussed, and we heard some clips there from the actual film. He was cleared of a fray. Was there any contrition from him in the film about what happened in Bristol?
No. In fact, quite the opposite. He said, what do you expect me to do? Just walk past and do nothing? And what do I do if it happens again? Well, I'll go and help out again. He saw it as helping out these two lads who were being picked on, basically. And one thing that I did strike about the film, and I'm surprised they kept it in a way, was when they took him back to Cockermouth, where he had, say, arrived in England as a 10-year-old. There were a couple of moments where he said, there's so-and-so, hi, Damien or Darren or something. Had a fight with him once. And then they go past a ginnel, I think probably call it up in Cockermouth, that's a few fights down there when I was a lad. You think, because he is a rough diamond. He was sent back from an A tour, if you remember, for bad behaviour. I mean, you can chart this through Ben. Through Ben's career, he's not rock solid in terms of that sort of behaviour, but maybe it is that sort of edge to him that makes him the sportsman that he is. He's incredibly stubborn. So again, I'm not surprised that he didn't show any contrition, because he doesn't take a backward step.
Well, the premiere of the film took place on Monday night, and Jonathan asked Stokes what his emotions were watching it.
It was weird because obviously I didn't know how it was going to turn out with all the, cinematic or whatever word you call it, added into it to make the final product. But I think probably the best word is proud of what I managed to go into and how much I threw myself into that project, because it was more than just talking about like World Cup and Headingley and everything like that. So very proud of what I've thrown myself into, and I was pretty impressed with the final product.
Did you feel that you just had to get this stuff out?
Look, I don't know. Yes, but from a different reason, because I think I think this could help quite a lot of people, to especially who might have gone through something similar to me in terms of the way that they're feeling at some certain point, and it's something that it's got better, but certainly in the past it's something that's had a stigma around that's not very good, that it's you just pull your shoulders back and crack on with it. It's not as simple as that. So I hope that it really does help people in whatever way it does, and so when I look at it like that, it wasn't just I needed to get it out there. It was thinking that I feel like this could really have a big impact on people away from what I'm known for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, would the Ben Stokes of 5 years ago ever imagine that you'd have had mental health issues?
I know that's something that I think is important to speak about as well, that I never thought that me being me would ever go through something like this, and it just proves that it's not something that picks and chooses when it does. It can just hit you, and it can affect anybody, of whoever you are, what you do, what status you are. It's something that's very real, and something that needs to be taken very seriously.
Has it impacted at all the way that you play?
No, I don't think so. I think I've always been quite free sort of spirit, and always wanted to look at the way I play cricket very positively, and look at the positive outcome of everything. But I think overall, all my experiences, not on the field but also off the field, as I've said before, I think it just makes me quite relatable as a captain. It doesn't make me a better captain. I think it just, people can maybe sit there, and when I speak, it's from experiences that I've gone through, and they can actually sit there and go like, oh yeah, he does he knows what he's talking about. He's gone through this and he's managed to be here now. So yeah, I think it just makes me a bit more relatable, I guess.
What struck me, Ben, watching the film was what you looked like. I mean, here you are, you've got a bit of a different hairstyle, but
You look a shell.
Yeah, and it's something that I was really taken back by when I first watched that back, as it was me, but it wasn't. Like, you know, I was just very emotionless. There was nothing going on behind my eyes, really, and, you know, just very, I don't know. When I look back, I couldn't actually really remember much of it, to be honest. That's why I wanted to watch it back before it finally got put out there. Just a massive eye-opener, and yeah, I think it just wasn't me, was it?
Well, it's not like I look at you now, no. Sparkly eyes.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Nah, but yeah, look, it's a very important part, I think, for people to see. It's something that it goes away from and then comes back again, and the way they sort of portrayed that moment in my life, I think, is very powerful for people to be able to see.
Yeah. And are you still on medication now?
Yeah.
So strong, or I mean, do you grade what sort of medication that you're on?
Oh no, I don't know. I just listened to the professionals and found something that's really worked for me. But again, it's something that I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to say, or that the stuff that is helping me be how I am today. You know, I'm never going to shy away from saying what I went through or what I do to help me with it. So you know, it's okay to be not okay.
Looking again at that roller coaster of a ride, I mean, it's hardly surprising that you suffered, if you think about it, what you went through in quite a short space of time. Bristol onwards, really.
Yeah, I think, and you know, that was, you know, when you look back on everything and stuff like that, it's, you know, even I can say, like, I'm not surprised. It's, you know, for me, I was bottling everything up, you know, and it's not a good thing to think that you can just store all your emotions away and then just expect to get on with stuff, because there was obviously going to be a point where everything breaks. And you know, my breaking point was Nottingham that early morning.
Yeah. Did you think you might go to prison?
No.
Never for a moment?
No.
So that wasn't sort of part of the pressure that was building up?
No.
And the aftermath of that, then, when people saw the video, jumped to possibly inevitable conclusions in a way, what was your view of that? Did you feel that you weren't supported enough?
I think I look at, you know, I had an amazing support group around me, an amazing support unit, but you know, when you're going through something like that, it's you sort of look at the negative side of, you know, what people are saying and portraying you as. But you know, I look back on that now, and you know, the people who stuck very close to me are the people who were close to me at the time, and they're still a very tight-knit group who I know go through the highs and the lows with me as well.
Yeah. Do you think you should have gone to Australia in retrospect?
I don't know. It's a good question, something that I've not massively thought about, but I don't know, that could be for another time for me to actually sit down and discuss to myself.
You talk about the suits. What's your relationship like with your bosses there?
Look, I think that the word suits is a word and a phrase that I use because what I didn't want to do was throw any individual under the bus. And at the time, the word that I used, suits, was just as a general saying about certain people. It's not saying that anyone who wears a suit is not, don't like you. It's not what I was getting at. But look, certain suits were fantastic to me, and certain suits is the word that I use. I didn't feel like was, you know, being looked after as well as could have been, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think when you look at the word suits, it's a bit generic, but it's the best word that I could come up with to not individualise any person.
I just want to mention your mum, because the part she played in that film is remarkable, really, thanks to that story that was put out there by the Sun newspaper. Did she in any way find that cathartic herself, or I mean, that was a dreadful ordeal?
I don't know. It was a very delicate situation for her and us as a family to go through. But I think what she takes great pride out of is that she don't know, she's sort of similar to me. She feels like that can help someone. That her experience of what she went through is something that other people can look at who have gone through something similar in life. You know, she feels like people who will sit and watch that particular bit, that might help someone really, I don't know, go and find help elsewhere. So she's an amazing woman to go through what she went through, and then also her job as well, what she does right now. She's a real credit to herself.
Yeah. And your dad, as a last thought on this, I mean, he's still looking over you?
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking over me with some kind of criticism, no doubt. But you know, that's, you know, he was amazing person, amazing father, amazing role model. Wanted everything for me, only wanted the best for me, and yeah, it was important. And I'm actually proud that I was able to show my dad like that, because everything that he taught me, everything I did growing up with him, you know, I was very sort of proud to be able to spend that time with him and show the world, you know, sort of go into more detail about what he was like as a man, even though what you see of him isn't, you know, him at his strongest.
Well, that's Ben Stokes talking about his film. Jonathan, you got to know the family very well. Just explain for those who don't know those references about Deb Stokes and the son story.
Yeah, it's an absolute tragedy, and that this is before Ben was born, and her former partner, she just got together with Jared Stokes one day, arrived at her house with a gun. He shot and killed her children, Tracy and Andrew. This is 3 years before Ben was born. Then he turned the gun on himself and shot himself. So it had nothing to do with Ben at all, but the story was linked. And so, I mean, she is a remarkable woman. She's now a grief counsellor. And there aren't many of those in the South Island of New Zealand, because until recently not a lot happens. But then, of course, she had to deal with those mosques that were bombed in Christchurch. She was there having to deal with all of that side of it, having had this hideous tragedy in her life. And there's one part of the film in which she says that, you know, she wrote a impact statement when they were sorting this out with this particular national newspaper, which was so strong and so powerful and so horrendous that Ben himself couldn't actually finish it. He started reading it and couldn't finish it. And so that is, again, portrayed, I think, very powerfully in this film.
And his father, Jed, who talked about that, he died relatively recently of brain cancer.
Absolutely. I mean, they're a great family. I mean, you know what it's like in this job. You end up in a hotel. The Oval for me is quite a quiet test, because all you lot are London based. So I'm sitting in the hotel by myself, and it was a few years ago now, obviously. But I actually got to know Mr. and Mrs. Stokes. I mean, Ben was there, but I mean, I'm not close with Ben. I never had a meal with Ben or anything. But those two, same sort of age, same sort of interests. We went to the ground together and so on. So I have got to know them, and particularly Deb, very well. And I've got nothing but incredible admiration for her, really. You know, she's at the other side of the world. She's got his brother there now. But to deal with all of that, and to cope with her job as well, it is quite remarkable. And I think, you know, she was here this summer. She came and stayed at our house. Actually, it was great fun. And she actually she got up to Cockermouth for the first time in ages, where Ben was taken, and she spent a lot of time with Ben, because they have been apart so much. And while people will say, "Oh, come on, he's earning a fortune. What a lucky lad, being a top class sportsman. Oh, I'd like to play cricket all my life." I think for any international cricketer of his calibre, in other words, being called upon all over the place, it's his choice to play IPL and so on, of course. But the 2 years of COVID have been incredibly challenging.
Now, one of those who features heavily in the film is Ben's predecessor as England captain, Joe Root. He's been speaking to Stefan Schemmelt.
I think it's been very powerful watching that documentary. You forget how much he's been through in such a short space of time. And I think it's actually very brave as well to lay himself as bare as he has done at times, and very powerful for anyone watching. See someone who can at times look sort of superhuman and do things that other players around the world can't do. I think shows great leadership, actually, to be able to put yourself out there for you know, and express some of the difficulties that he's had to go through.
Just put cricket to one side for a moment. What we know about Ben Stokes is seeing his performances on the field, what he does with the bat, bowling through, grimacing and hobbling around with his bad knee. But tell us what you know about him as a person. Does he do your head in talking about Call of Duty all the time?
No.
What's he like away from the game?
He's pretty relaxed, to be honest. He's generally quite a quiet guy. He's good fun to be around. You know, he's very normal, if that makes sense. And you know, he's just a really good lad. He cares about the people around him. He's very loyal. And as I say, all those traits make him the player that he is. But you know, he's much more than what you see out on the field. He's a great human being.
What about the journey that you and him have been on together as cricketers? Because it struck me actually that you and him have been at the heart of some of the biggest moments of English cricket history in the past 10 years. I know the breakup of a great side in Australia in 2013-14, you were both on that tour. 2016 T20 World Cup final, you were the first person, I think, to give him a hug after he got hit for those 4 sixes. You were in the side that won the World Cup together. What about that journey that you two have been on as friends and teammates?
Yeah, it's been great fun, and it's bits like that I think you remember when you look back on your career, the players that you played with, and the good times, the hardships that you've been through, and knowing that those guys are there for you, and you enjoy the good moments for each other, and you help each other through the difficult times as well. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about sport, is that you can create those kind of relationships and memories and experiences, and very fortunate that I've, like you say, mentioned there, experienced a lot of them with one of our greatest ever players and good mate of mine.
You said he was very brave to speak up in the way that he has. How important is it for people out there to see someone like Ben Stokes, you described him as a superhuman, to see that even he can be vulnerable and to lay himself on the line in the way that he has?
Yeah, I think it's quite powerful for people to see that sometimes it's okay not to be okay, and to ask for help's perfectly all right, and a brave thing to do. And as I say, for someone like Ben to go and do that, hopefully if there are people out there that are struggling or finding things difficult, they can, from watching it and through his experience, can gain the courage to go and ask for that help and really help themselves.
That's Joe Root talking to Stefan Schemmel. In the film, you get a flavour of the incredible highs in Ben's career, with long features on the Headingley knock and the World Cup final. But you also hear about the lows on the field, including, let's not forget this, that devastating last over in the 2016 T20 World Cup final, when Stokes had 19 runs to defend to seal the trophy. He was up against Carlos Brathwaite.
149 for 6. Stokes sets off again from the edge of the circle. In he comes now, bowls to right-handed Brathwaite, who swings him over long off. 3 successive sixes. Stokes comes in, bowls to Brathwaite, hits him for 6 and wins the game. 4 successive sixes in the last over. I've never seen that before. And England look utterly crushed as the West Indies players come rushing out onto the field. Carlos Brathwaite is an instant hero.
Well, Carlos, we all know your side of the story from Calcutta 2016. Do you ever think about Ben Stokes and his side of it, that over?
I mean, we spoke directly after the game, and I told him how much I admired him as a cricketer and all-rounder, and that he had to be a winner, had to be a loser. So it was never any arrogance from my part. It was an understanding that, what had happened, and he was on the losing end. But in my eyes, that didn't diminish him as a player. And if we look back past that in history, Stuart Broad got it for 6 sixes, went on to be or continued to go on to be an all-time great in the Test format, and a stalwart for England. So I think as professionals, we know that one good performance doesn't define you, and as a result, one bad performance doesn't define you either.
As that over was playing out, did you sense that you had the upper hand? Was there a moment you thought, he's gone here?
Probably only after the third ball, to be honest. I think balls 1, 2 and 3 happened quite quickly. And then after the third ball, they had a little bit of a break. And that's when I kind of let my guard down a little bit, enjoy the moment, soak it in. But before that, everything happened so quickly, and it just switched on and focused that I didn't really have much time to think about anything else.
How was he after the game?
Well, obviously, we were celebrating quite a bit. And it's only after everything settled down that I asked CJ if I could speak to him and get his jersey. So that would have been probably a good 45 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, to an hour. And yeah, I think he was okay. He wasn't crying, he wasn't deflated. He probably was, but from what I've heard coming out of the dressing room, they obviously spoke about what happened, but they kind of moved on quite quickly as a group. And I think because of that, when I did see him 45 minutes to an hour later, it was almost as though nothing ever happened. A game of cricket was played, and they'd moved on with it, which I think is a healthy thing for a dressing room.
For me, imagining how that wouldn't be life-defining, career-defining, is quite hard to process. What does it say about him as a man that he has gone on to achieve what he has after that?
Yeah, it speaks volumes about him and his character, but also the English system as well. If I'm not mistaken, he had the opportunity to come back home, take some time away from the game, and really recollect his thoughts and almost start afresh later in the summer. So for the English public and English Cricket Board to be as aware as they were, to take him out of the firing line and allow him to restart his career when he felt comfortable to, I think it speaks volume to the English system as well. But yeah, as a cricketer and as a professional sports person, those sort of things probably actually drive you a lot more than success does. And I'm sure that the 2019 World Cup would have felt like vindication for him, coming back from the lows of 2016 to the highs of 2019 and being as integral as he was. So I didn't for a moment thought that that was the end of Ben Stokes' career. But to see the heights that he's reached, obviously, you look back at 2016 and you think, if you draw a line there and then you look at where he is now in 2022, that is an amazing feat for it to be a complete turnaround. Captain of the Test team and leading in a new era in Test cricket and making people fall in love with the most boring format of the game again. So, yeah, for him, it speaks volume about him, his character, but not only that, the English system and the awareness of the English public.
That's Carlos Brathwaite talking to Henry Moran about Ben Stokes and that incident in 2016. It strikes me when you look at Stokes' career, a lot of occasions you can say, I've never quite seen anything like that. In fact, I think you, Jonathan, you said it twice in the commentary. I've never seen that happen before. So there's 2016, I think a Cape Town amazing double hundred in that partnership with Johnny Best. I've never seen anything like that. Headingley, same World Cup final. What about the future with Ben Stokes? It doesn't feel to me as if it's going to be necessarily particularly predictable. We heard from Joe Root there. You feel as if you can almost plot Joe Root's sort of future. Of course, you never know what's around the corner, of course. But with Ben,
totally unpredictable.
Not so sure.
I mean, you do worry about his knee on a sort of physical side. You wonder if he can keep playing with that for long. But as a character, I don't think you could possibly predict what he might do. I mean, he's like a firework, a shooting star. When's he going to suddenly just fade out and go, but also explosive, and I think very quick to make decisions, as you've seen me giving up 50 overs cricket, haven't we? That came from nowhere really, as was his decision to stop playing. Although again, I go back to that film, and when you see him at that point, you can see absolutely why he took that decision. It was clearly the right decision. And I was there in Calcutta that night, and you couldn't help but think, and particularly as having played the game, you wonder quite how you're going to pick yourself up from that, because that was nailed on. England are going to be world champions. Defend 19 on a huge ground in Calcutta. It was done. And Carlos Brathwaite hit those 4 sixes, and I must admit, you probably tell from the commentary for the last one. Although we were all deflated, if we're honest, because we're there obviously to follow England, but it just felt inevitable. And to see the pictures of Ben in that film reminds you of what a crushing experience it was. But it didn't kill his confidence. It didn't. And there's that stubborn streak again that we've talked about that makes someone like Ben Stokes the sportsman that he is, and that he has managed to get rid of that and to move on and to grab matches by the scruff of the neck.
Joe Root captained England for about 5 years, and he was actually a record number of appearances as England captain. Do you see something similar with Ben Stokes?
I don't, if I'm honest. It feels like this is going to be very exciting. And they said at the time, strap in, didn't they? It's going to be a roller coaster ride. And but it has been so far, as we saw at Lord's, because it will be, because neither he nor McCullum will take a backward step. And that, again, makes both of them the cricketers that they are or were. But by the same token, I mean, I don't think we're talking about consistency that much. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. And at one point, sometime, he will say that's had enough.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, Ben Stokes' Phoenix from the Ashes is released on Amazon Prime tomorrow.